Welcome back, everyone. Today we'll talk about a very important thing, that is writing introduction for any sort of answers. You write a thesis, if you are writing some notes, you're writing an explanation, or maybe you are sitting for examination, as well as like when you write essays, you need to write introduction. So according to me, introduction is the most important aspect of a writing. That is, you can say it is the structural and functional unit of any piece of writing. So that writing can be a part of an English language, or it can be part of English literature, doesn't matter, but introduction will play the most important role in creating a benchmark for a particular writing. Let's first say what is introduction. So the word itself tells you like what is introduction, like to introduce, like you're bringing about some prior information, like it is setting a precedence. That means before saying something, you're already trying to give some information on that particular thing, right? Whenever you're writing something, it means you're expressing some information, you're expressing your idea, okay? But this sort of thing will vary from person to person with relation to the quality, quantity, the information and ideas that you bring about. So in the introduction, we try to bring the information that is very mandatory. We look for the keywords, those will give an highlighted version of what is going to come in the future. Like when you're writing a piece of writing, so you will have certain angles, like you will have a plan, and there are many people who don't plan before writing, they just plan while writing. So that will depend on your expertise. There are certain people who are very good at writing, so when they start writing, they just put the introduction, and slowly gradually they just make the sketches accordingly, according to the demands. They bring about a particular style and sketch in their writing. So that depends from person to person, and it's not mandatory that you need to plan always before the writing. But it's said when you are a beginner, or before you have not turned into a pro, so if you turn into a pro as a writer, you don't need to plan so much. So while writing, you can change your format accordingly. Let's not talk about this, rather we'll focus on introduction. So when you're trying to introduce something, you're trying to give a prior information. So for example, when you're sitting for examination, or when you are writing essays, so it may be 3.5 page, 4 page, depending on what is asked, what is the demand. On the word limit will also matter a lot, but on the basis of that, you need to put an introduction. So in introduction, you have to give a prior information, you will give some keywords, you will try to define the keywords. Now when I say you have to define, it means that you will not bring about a bookish definition. It's not possible for you to define every term that you find it on the topic. While you're writing something, it means you have a topic to write on, you've got a target. So when you have a particular target, you need to focus on that target, so that accordingly to the flow you can go on writing. So after introduction, you'll have description, then you bring about a plot, you create a climax, then you bring about the conclusion, and then you just end it, right? So naturally the introduction is very important, because the readers or the person who is going to check your answer script, they're going to get some prior information, they're going to get some basic information. Okay, you're going to write about socialism, for example. So when you're going to write about socialism, it's not necessary that you need to know socialism by textual knowledge, right? You do not need to define it on a textual version or a bookish version, but you can use your own intellect, you can use your own idea to bring about a very nice introduction, right? Socialism, you can say it's a natural social phenomena. So that is just an example I gave you. It's not necessary that I'm always correct, but what I'm trying to say, that's an example. Like if I want, I can bring about a bookish information, or very very professional sort of introduction for any sort of piece. So that will vary on your prior knowledge, whatever knowledge you had earlier. So that will be highlighted on the way you write an introduction, because we always say the first impression is the last impression. So when I say the first impression is the last impression, it means that you're going to try to create a benchmark, or you're trying to create a footprint. Okay, the reader or the examiner is going to find out that you have a particular form, you have a particular quality, and that quality is going to follow on. That means if that person can write such a good information, or if that person can bring about such good introduction, so he's in the future he's going to produce some good writings. So you are naturally creating a space into the heart of that person who's reading it, right? That means you're trying to draw the attention of the reader. So naturally, like you will have more proficiency, so you will have higher probability to get higher marks, right? So it doesn't mean that when you write a good introduction that you will always get good marks, but it's increasing the probability. So as I said, when you're going to write on socialism, you try to define what is socialism. So you can say it's a natural social phenomena. It has got certain theories. The theories will be brought up in the like in the next part of the writing, right? So when you're writing an essay on, you can say the modern technology, so it's very important to define what is technology, or how is the modern technology different from the other technology. Those things will come up in the description, not in an introduction. Your introduction will be focused mostly on your keywords. So when I say the keywords, see the two keywords that have come here is technology, and what type of technology? It is the modern technology. So we are not talking about something that is primitive or something outdated. We're talking about something which is modern and that is based on technology. So your topic is modern technology. So it's very important for you to define what is technology. You may not always have a bookish sort of information, but naturally it will come with your practice. So you can say technology is a service provided by the devices of the modern generation. So you see, that's a good sounded or well sounded introduction. So it will naturally create a sort of good vibration about you into the reader's mind. So when you're going to write certain essays, you're going to write some long answers, you naturally will create some good writing in the end, or in the begin, or in the description. But in the beginning you need to create something which will create a sort of impression for you. So that is very, very important. So your first impression will try to define what type of writer you are. That's going to carry a good amount of marks, right? So when you're writing a letter, you try to introduce the receiver, or you try to introduce the sender as well, or what type of relationship you have, because in the introduction you need to give them an idea what is going to come in the future. So that is something which happens in the beginning. So if you do not try to give those information in the beginning, it becomes hard for the reader, it becomes hard for the person who's going to do the correction of your script, so to understand that what is going to happen in the future. So it's very much important for us to give some hint what is going to happen, so that hint is going to follow in the future in your writing. Okay, so this introduction is very, very important. And whenever you write any sort of writing, or whenever you try to speak, do you always say something abrupt? No, you don't bring out abrupt information in the beginning. Naturally it goes on gradually. So there's a development of matter. So before development, you have to create an idea in the beginning. You have to talk about the basic information. You have to talk about which is the most highlighted word in the topic, and that thing is going to be the introduction, because that is going to give the idea, okay, about what is going to come in the future. So if you do not tell what is going to come in the future, it becomes very, very confusing for the reader. So naturally it will create a very good impression. The way you will go on in the future, that will also depend on your introduction. That is going to teach the reader that okay, this guy has this sort of style, or he is of that standard. So your quality will be well reflected here. So good vocabulary is also required. It needs to have a good punchline. So punchline always do not have quotation. You can just create something of your own that sounds interesting, right? So you can say gradual development of technology has brought about an impact into the lives of human beings. So you see, that can be a good introduction for modern technology. So that's a topic called modern technology. So you can say, you can take any topic, so you need to practice on introduction. This is a very important thing. So as I say, it's a structural and functional thing of a writing. So when you write something, your beginning should be good enough. It should give a good vibe, right? So that will create a positive image among your reader. When you say something, you naturally need to introduce in the beginning about what you're going to say. You just do not say that you need something. First you tell what is the requirement of the need, so that it looks positive. It gives a good vibe. Okay, then you get a go to say something more in the future, right? But in the beginning you need to say what is it, or you define what is it about, and then it becomes easy for the reader to understand what you're up to, right? So that it doesn't come, doesn't land off all of a sudden. You cannot just bring out some information all of a sudden. It has to move on gradually, and consequently you will see your writing becomes rich. So, and that do not come in a day. So you will practice. You practice introduction. You take any sort of topic, then you just put some keywords and you try to define it maybe in 5 to 6 lines. Don't make it very elaborative, okay, because you have to bring constructive ideas. You do not just bring good theories there, because those good theories are meant for the description, okay. You bring them in the future, you bring them in the latter parts, but in the previous parts, that is the introduction, you try to give a good definition of what is said about, or what is the topic. Okay, you discuss about the keywords, you introduce the keywords to the readers so that they get a positive vibe about you, right? So slowly in the upcoming videos we'll talk about creating good definition, but that do not need to come from dictionary always. You don't need to Google it on the internet and just find out what is the meaning of that word. Rather, you can just create something of your own, and that can also look like a good definition, right? So that has to come from originality, so that will come from your practice. So you go on taking topics, you put some introduction, you see how does it look like, and you will always feel good. Okay, my introduction is good, it gives a good good confidence, then you write more, so naturally it will be nice. So when you go for exams in English, for language, literature, ELT, or maybe you are doing a postgraduate in course, or you are doing a diploma course, doesn't matter, or maybe in your bachelor's as well. So when you're writing long answers, you need to have a good introduction that will talk about the writer, they'll talk about the genre of the book, the keywords, okay, the natural thing that is going to come, the main idea, the constructive idea of the topic will come up in the beginning, that is in the introduction, and then it becomes nice. Then when you go on reading, you yourself will feel that okay, that my introduction was good, so I have higher probability to get good marks, so your confidence automatically rises. So it installs a good probability of getting higher marks, so your achievements will be highlighted more. So when you try to introduce a topic, it should be good enough, but it should not be very very long. Then what happens, your important ideas will come up in the introduction itself, and then when you go to the description or in the later parts of the writing, you see there will be a chance of repeating. So that redundancy is very very important, so you should avoid that. If your writing becomes redundant, so that will create a sense of boredom among the readers, so you do not repeat. So when you bring those matter in the beginning, you cannot bring it in the later part, so that will deprive quality in the writing. So you need to understand what you have brought in and what is going to come in the future. There should be a set of boundaries. Okay, I'll create a boundary for my introduction, I'll create a boundary for my description, these things will come, and that process should be made before the writing if you are a beginner. But if you are not a beginner, if you are a pro, or if you have become a professional writer, or if you are good in writing, then what happens, you just can go on sketching the plan while you're writing. But I would suggest, if you're a beginner, or if you think that you have some problem with your writing, or you need to develop more on your writing, in that case, that please try to isolate your introduction. When I say isolate, it means you practice introduction, and then you see slowly you will understand how to move on, because there's a gradual shift. When I say gradual shift, it means your writing is being branched. Okay, you see there's a branch in your writing: introduction, your planning, your developments, then you conclude. So there's a planning for everything. So naturally you have to go on. Okay, so you cannot just bring all the information simultaneously. There's a set of rules, and those rules are not set by some sort of dictionary or some by law book. It's a rule of writing. When you say something, when you express something, there should be a matter of chronology, there should be hierarchy. That constructional ideas, that constructional idea will come slowly. It cannot just land all of a sudden. You cannot push in all the data all together. It has to come sequentially. That sequence will come with practice. So in the name of introduction, you bring the plots in the frame of description, then you give some ideas, examples, and then you conclude it. But in the beginning, you try to draw the attention of the reader. The reader has to understand your quality. The reader has to get a good image of you, so it becomes more positive. Okay, then the chance or the probability of getting higher rewards are standing in front of you. So I expect all the viewers to understand what I've said, because this is not a class, it is not a lecture, it is just an interpretation. I'm trying to interpret information. Okay, so I'm trying to express my opinion so that you understand what I'm trying to say, and you apply it in your writing, you apply it while speaking. Because English is a language, you need to respect that language in the form of your communication. So when you communicate, both it can be writing and as well as speaking. So when I'm talking about writing, that means you are mostly going to be evaluated. So when you're getting evaluated, it means you have to give your best. So you write nicely, try to understand my interpretation, try to focus more on my discussion. So when I'm discussing, I'm trying to bring ideas, try to get the idea what I'm trying to bring. Please, if you have liked the video, do share, subscribe, and don't forget to like. Thank you.